Welcome to the GTPlanet podcast, bringing you all the news and opinions from the world of Gran Turismo and beyond. I'm AJ, and I'm joined as ever by GTPlanet's administrators, Jordan.
Hello.
And Famine.
Good evening.
How are we, gentlemen?
Very good.
So we've got a packed show. In the news, we've got 8 topics to discuss. In Around the Forums, we'll be looking at what you've been posting on the website. A topic of the week, we've got a double header with both of the administrators out on field trips, with Jordan at the North American Nismo GT Academy National Finals, and Famine at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, where he spoke with Kazunori Yamamuchi. In the racing review, we'll look back on last weekend's 4 hours of scuba, and in the week ahead, we'll look forward to the Japan 12-hour, which had a thrilling qualifying session. So let's get right on with it and into the news. So first of all, Brands Hatch is coming to Assetto Corsa.
Yeah, that's pretty big news for the this PC simulator, which of course is coming to consoles here next year. So I think it's good news. Brands Hatch is sort of becoming kind of a staple track, really, for all these popular racing simulators to have. It's kind of come a long way. It seems like just a few years ago, we really didn't see this track very often, but it's a great one. I'm happy to have it.
Yeah, I mean the first corner, the Paddock Hill Bend, it's one of the great corners in motorsport. It's almost a completely blind turn in, a blind braking point. The track goes downhill suddenly, and it washes you out to the left. A very thin rumble strip and lots of lovely gravel there to punish mistakes. And we certainly see a lot of action there with the British Touring Car Championship every year. And the shorter Indy circuit it's actually one of the rare tracks where if you stand in the right place, you can see all of it all at once. So I mean, that's terrific for the British touring cars, which use the shorter circuit. But the longer circuit is a cracker as well. And unfortunately, the Dingle Dell chicane no longer really exists as it did before. Got some fantastic video of the touring cars going around there in the 80s, and James Thompson messing it up royally. But yes, it's a lovely track, bringing another little bit of the UK to another racing game. It's definitely one to consider when the PlayStation 4 when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, moving on to some Forza news on the Xbox. With Horizon 2, 2 free Porsches will be available for a limited time. One of them being the GT2 RS from 2012, and the other is also from 2012, the Cayenne Turbo, which of course has a 4.8 litre V8 with over 400 horsepower. Exciting cars?
Well, I think so, but I'm a little interested, to see some of the reaction. I don't know if it's because Forza Horizon 2 is, I hesitate to say arcade, but I'm sure some Forza fans will call me out on that. But it's not really a racing simulator so much. So, I know people are frustrated with Porsche. Obviously, it's a hot topic among the sim racing community, but there doesn't seem to be quite the excitement and fanfare that you would expect, really, around the arrival of 2 of these, obviously, sort of flagship in a way models from Porsche. So, I don't know. I wonder if maybe maybe some of the hype is a bit overblown for this marquee. I'm not sure. It seems to be falling a little bit flat, but I'm not quite sure why. Among reactions, people are frustrated with. Do you guys get the same impression for that?
I think it could be 2 things. One, we already know Forza Motorsport 6 is coming, and of course the interest and the hype will be around that game, because I think GT Planet's audience probably is more interested in the motorsport than the Horizon side, but when they first pitched Forza Horizon, they said they were taking the physics and the blueprint of the Forza franchise and making the gameplay more accessible and a more arcadey, a different gameplay with the same engine and the same handling. I don't know how well that's worked out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this though. Sorry, Andrew, but the screenshots that the game produces are just incredible, aren't they?
Everyone loves a good. I was going to say the technical term there, but everyone loves a good touched-up screenshot. Yes. But yes, the Forza Horizon hasn't been developed. Forza Horizon 2 hasn't been developed by the same studio. Turn 10 have supported.
Playground.
Yeah, but Playground have done the Xbox One, and Sumo Digital, who from Sheffield, yay. They did the 360 version. So, yes, you'll expect that if it's not technically Turn 10's development anymore, then you are going to lose something of what makes the Forza games what they are.
Is it necessitated by wanting to make it an annual franchise?
Yeah, I mean, I used to quite like the Call of Duty games, which are the quintessential. Let's get a game out this year because it's time.
Apart from sports games, of course.
Yes, apart from FIFA ... Yeah, I guess that with such a rapid turnaround, with such a short interval between them, making it that annual thing, then yeah, probably a little bit of simplification is required.
Okay, well, moving on. Now to Gran Turismo. 3 pieces of news, 3 simulators. Gran Turismo and the GT Academy national finalists for North America, for the US, have been announced, Jordan?
Yes, they have, and I was there on hand for the national finals. They were in Nashville this year, just outside of Nashville, near the Nissan's North American headquarters. And tell you what, we've got a great group of guys this year, and it was a lot of fun watching the competition. But we'll be covering all that later. We'll look forward to going into more detail about how all that planned out. We'll be going into that in a later segment, so stay tuned for that.
Yep, that will be coming up as one of our topics of the week, along with Famine at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. So next is Bertone, and they have been removed from the Vision GT stable. There won't be a Vision GT car from them. Was this a surprise?
No. Bertone have been having significant financial troubles for a while now, and I think they declared bankruptcy last year. I think the image rights were sold off to another company elsewhere in Italy that was hoping to revive the name. But yeah, I mean, some of our eagle-eyed GTPlanet members spotted that it was no longer on the website. So, as you'll hear later on, I spoke to Kazunori at the Goodwood Festival of Speed about it, and he seemed a little pessimistic about it, and indeed, a few days later it's been removed from the site. So we're probably expecting to see it removed from the game stable with the next update. We can't really say that there will never be one. The rights are, of course, now owned by another company, and they are looking to get the name back out there.
Maybe in December, January of this year, before they came out with the free PlayStation Plus edition, of course, which is new. If you haven't seen that, be sure to look into that if you're a PlayStation Plus member. But it's a good game. It's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, and you can actually have a lot of fun playing it. And in a way, it sort of takes me back to the arcade days, of jumping into like Outrun or whatever that was, that old game was, that classic driving game was, and just drive. And I really have had a lot of fun with it. It doesn't really present much of a challenge for me, but I really like what they're doing with the online side of things, and that's kind of what this update was focused on. It has new club leaderboards for every tour event, and updates to the club challenges and photo mode improvements, and incorporate a lot of feedback from the general community. So I like to see where they're taking the game, and I like the community aspect. I think they're kind of pushing, breaking new ground there in a way, and although they might not have the perfect execution, I think they're laying the groundwork for something that could be really special, and hopefully it'll inspire the other developers to kind of go in this direction as well, because these games are social now, whether you like it or not, and they can really add a new dynamic to the gameplay. And I'm glad to see they're still working to improve.
Well, when you flick through the online lobbies on Gran Turismo, you quite often see people advertising for cruises. Just turn up to the track and enjoy driving your car around the track and perhaps chatting with your fellow lobby members. And this game seems to really address that need for people.
Yeah, it really does, and they actually just added a new random event feature, which lets you just kind of get behind the wheel of something new and try out a new track and a new car, and I think that's that sort of fosters that sense of community, and people may not want to race competitively, or they may not be good enough, because it's kind of stressful, if you really do a great online race, you can kind of get into it, but a lot of people just want to hang out and drive, and so I think this is sort of a good avenue for people that are into that sort of thing, the cruising, so to speak, and the people that may not necessarily want to do competitive driving or competitive racing definitely sort of fosters an environment that they can feel really comfortable in. So, yeah, it's all good.
And these are the cars that people would want to drive in that environment.
Absolutely, yeah. These are some of the greatest cars of today, and they look incredible. And I think a lot of the people that really enjoy cruising will be really especially taken with those cars. Maybe the younger guys are really not even interested in some of the older cars that have kind of come to some of other games like Assetto Corsa and Project Cars. So these cutting edge race cars, I think, will really sort of draw the attention of the younger players, and will pull in some more regulars for Drive Club.
Next up is Nismo GT Academy. This time it's Australia, and we now know the 6 finalists for this region.
Yeah, they'll be joining the 6 US finalists, and there's also 6 finalists each from Japan, North Africa, and I can't remember the final region for the life of me right now. Is it Thailand?
Yes, or is it Philippines?
Yes. Anyway, so joining the 6 US finalists that Jordan's going to be talking about a little bit later. There's 6 guys from Australia. I think they're mainly from Queensland, but since the final was actually held in the Gold Coast, that's probably not that much of a surprise. I think that they took over basically a film theme park for the weekend, a place called Warner Brothers Movie World, and there was the live event was there as well. So people turned up there Wednesday through Saturday and tried to qualify for the Saturday and Sunday finals, and they've had the usual Gran Turismo test, and then a little bit of driving gymkhana and the media test and the dreaded fitness test with the bleep test. But yeah, we've got 6 again, a wide range from 20 through to 30, which doesn't seem that wide a range now that I'm 37. And they'll be heading to Silverstone and joining the American 6 that Jordan's going to be speaking about later.
Another news item and another sim. It's been a great week for diversity. Project Cars and an expansion pack with the Audi expansion pack, which I think people knew was coming, but have been excited for nevertheless.
Yeah, for sure. With Project Cars kind of has this open development framework. There's not too many surprises like you get with other sims, but it's definitely a good addition to the series. I think I'm a big Audi fan, and this obviously I think the Audi 90 IMSA GTO is a very, very cool addition, which I don't believe has been in too many other racing games. So that's a fun one. This new track, that also came with the pack, it's a New Zealand track. I believe it's pronounced Ruapuna. I think is that correct? Can you guys correct me on that?
That's how I'd say it.
Ruapuna, yes. I've not actually had a chance to drive this track yet, but I think you don't see too many circuits from New Zealand or even Australia really, other than Mount Panorama, featured in sim racing games. So it's kind of a a fresh addition and a bold choice from Project Cars there. But I like to see new tracks that maybe aren't as well known internationally. I like to see them get exposure in mainstream racing games like this. It's a great way to introduce people to not introduce them, but maybe expand their horizons in terms of what's out there in the motorsports world.
I also like this trend that we've got now where when new tracks are being introduced to these games, it's every single variant of that track that is being put in the game. I think that thoroughness is appreciated.
Absolutely, and that's something that Project Cars has done right. I'm sure they've seen a lot of the criticism of Gran Turismo. That's definitely one thing that frustrates people, because you can see that these tracks have multiple variations there, and yet they're not available for some unknown reason. And so I'm glad to see them embracing all the variations of this circuit in particular, and it's a great way forward. I also like the way that they're steadily releasing content, because that's the way people expect games to evolve today, and they expect new things to come out to keep it fresh. And that's the world we live in now, for better or worse. And I personally think it's for the better. But a steady stream of new content, 3 to 5 cars per month, really keeps the game feeling fresh and keeps it feeling interesting. So I like the DLC, for lack of a better term, the DLC strategy that SMS is using for Project Cars.
What do you think about the price point? I mean, Gran Turismo players are in a way spoilt by the free constant content that does come through. What do you think about the price?
Personally, it doesn't really bother me. I know for some players who may need to get approval from their parents or something like that, I can see how it could be a pain point. I know when I was certainly younger and getting into racing games, that would have been sort of a awkward conversation to have with mom and dad, to ask them if I could buy 3 new cars for my racing game and a new track. But I don't really have a problem with it, as long as the games come out with sufficient content and it's an adequate price point, and you see the value and the amount that they're charging for it. I think that's fine. It costs money to produce these cars and this new content, and to license all this new stuff. So I don't really have a problem with it. I think as long as they keep DLC under around the $8 mark, I think it's generally okay. As long as they don't get carried away with it, and as long as they keep coming out with free content every once in a while as well, that'll help keep people satisfied and make them feel like they don't have to keep paying to enjoy the latest that the game has to offer.
The only point of contention that I could see is that this is clearly an Audi branded release, and some people could be a little put off by that fact that they're paying for something that it looks on the outside that Audi could be sponsoring.
True, that's a valid criticism, and that may very well be the case. The SMS may be making money on both ends of this deal, but if you don't like that, or the cars don't seem to be worth that to you, or the track, then you shouldn't buy it, and you should vote with your wallet. And these game developers will be watching the numbers very closely, and if enough people don't buy it, then they'll either not produce it or won't charge for it in the future. If Audi comes to them, or other manufacturers come to them in the future and say, hey, we want to have a featured car pack, and they say, well, it's going to have to be free, then or else people won't buy it, and they can look back and reference these other DLC packs that they've done, then maybe the car companies will say, hey, look, if we want to get players using our cars in the game, we're going to have to subsidize this more, and maybe put more of the burden on the manufacturers to get these cars in the games. But it's sort of interesting. I would love to be a fly on the wall inside these game development studios to see just how these relationships actually form, and how they come to these price points, and how the exchange of money actually works. I think that's a fascinating side of the racing game development equation. But I think if you don't like it, vote with your wallet and don't buy it. And maybe that'll change. Maybe we won't get content. Maybe, who knows? But for me, if I think these cars are interesting. I think the track's interesting. So sure, $5.49. That's cheaper than my dinner was last night. So It's not a big problem.
This is also marks another new prototype in sim games, another new Audi. The first new Audi since Forza 5 introduced the 2012 version of the R18. And then before that it was Gran Turismo 6 with the 2011 car, which was also featured in Forza 4. This, of course, is a first generation, fully fledged P1H. Of course, they've been around since 2012, but the balance between internal combustion engine and hybrid power unit is almost 50-50 with these cars. The car obviously won Le Mans in 2014, the race nobody wanted to win. I believe the car that won had its turbos changed mid-race, but still went on to win. Looking forward to getting behind the wheel of that particular car?
Yes, I know I am. It's always interesting to see how these hybrids drive in these games, and I just love to. I don't know. I really appreciate what Audi's doing from a technical perspective, and appreciate their reliability. And it's fun. It's fun to see what these cars feel like on the track, and I think especially as you said with this current generation racing game, it's really interesting to see how the cars look and how they sound. Most importantly, Project Cars has great sound in my opinion, and I can't wait to get behind the wheel and check it out. I've not had a chance to do it yet, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm really looking forward to it for sure.
Okay, and that's about it for the news. Let's have a look at what's going on around the forums. Okay, so Famin's been looking through the forums because that's his job, and he's found some interesting threads to share.
Yeah, obviously this week is leading up to one of the biggest events in world motorsport, the Spa 24 Hours at the lovely and again one of the best rated racing circuits of any kind, the lovely Spa-Francorchamps. The GT Academy teams are there as usual. A two-car lineup of GT3 class GTRs. One is in that the white, black, and red livery that we've seen quite a lot so far this season, and the other's wearing the same blue, white, and red retro livery that one of the Nismo GTR LMP1s was wearing at Le Mans, which is a novelty.
Yeah, although the rule is never run a retro livery, it will never turn out well. So hopefully that car can break that streak.
Yeah, I think it was the first car of the three that actually retired from Le Mans this year, so that's not going well. But yeah, alongside the usual GT Academy guys, there's actually a GTPlanet forum member racing one of the support races at Spa this weekend. Kart number 38, one of our South African members, he's been trying to forge a racing career of his own outside of GT Academy, and he's had a last minute invite to head to the circuit and race in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo,
which follows the Blancpain series all year, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the key support races, but I think he said this is the very first race he's not had to pay to drive, so that's a nice point for a racing driver in their career. I've spoken to a few drivers in a few series, and it's surprising how many of them have to pay for their seats.
Yeah, it's a milestone, isn't it?
Yeah.
The story of qualifying has been a lot of cars having their times deleted for track limits, which is something we know all about. The 22 car of Ricardo, Gaetan, Florian and Olivier Pla, they were 21st in qualifying, so they missed out by one for the Superpole top 20, so that must have been by, 2/10 of a second? So that was tight there. Pole did eventually go to an Audi, surprisingly, of Nico Muller and Frank Stippler, but it's a 24-hour race, so pole doesn't really matter at all, does it, Jordan?
No, it really doesn't, especially not for a 24-hour race, especially one as challenging as Spa. But, Audi certainly knows how to win endurance races, so they're in a good position.
Okay, what was the second second thread you found, Famine?
We were talking earlier about the Ruapuna expansion pack for Project Cars. One of our forum members with a very difficult to pronounce name, Smutisi, during an online race with a friend of his, got slightly poked out of control and found himself driving through a marshal's post. He's posted a video in the Project Cars forum called Troll Hole, where he replicates it. This marshal post is penetrable from the outside but impenetrable from the inside, so as soon as your car goes into it, it can't get out. And because it's smaller than the car, it essentially instantly destroys the car, and all sorts of crazy things can happen, like firing you under the map. But actually, the GTPlanet members in general have been very good over the years at discovering ways out of circuits.
Yes, it's always a good topic, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always nice to see whether there is any loopholes that the developers have left in. I can think of in Gran Turismo GT Arena. There's clearly a pit lane there. You just you can't use it.
Yeah, you can. There is a circuit exit at the GT Arena as well, but people have been using exploits at say the Nürburgring and Special Stage Route 7 in GT5 and GT6 as ways of gaining quick credits. I think the Nürburgring one you could escape. I think it was at the Ford chicane, and you could drive back under the circuit, and you could clip between the start line and the Schumacher S in a little circle, and it would count as a full lap. So you could do a full lap in about 2.5 seconds, and that was a way to get lots and lots of easy money in GT6 early on. And the same thing applied to Special Stage Route 5. You could escape underneath the map. Sorry, Route 7, not Route 5. Was it Route X? No, it was Route 7. The motorway replica. So the Wangan replica. You could leave the track at one of the slip roads and head back out under the circuit. And because the track ran either way on a suspension bridge, the same thing applied. You could drive underneath the map and do little circles, and it would count as full laps. So people were doing 99 lap online races of that circuit in a couple of minutes, and getting millions and millions of credits for it. So it's a kind of a hot topic with the console games, escaping circuits.
Yes, it is. I've always wondered about people, how they find those things, because they seem, obvious or easy after they spread on the forums. But then I'm like, who has the time and patience to sit around and say, okay, I'm going to try in this corner and try to get the car out here? I'm like, wow.
They're like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. They're systematically testing the outer fences to find for weaknesses.
Yes, it's amazing.
Apologies to anyone who's offended by being compared to a velociraptor.
I don't think anybody would be offended by that.
Clever girl.
So, the final thread that you dug up this week?
That was a fun one in the Automotive Cars in General forum, which... We've all seen these, the 10 lottery cars and the 5 fantasy cars and the X many this type of car. But a member named Populux Cowboy has posted a thread, 10 cars for the rest of your life, which was essentially to pick 10 cars of any kind from anywhere. Custom and concept cars are allowed, but only ones that are still existing now in running condition, that you take now will last you until you expire without changing any of them. And that's been a fun discussion thread.
So did you come up with your list of 10?
Mine was a little bit more flippant. I came up with a list of 1. I suggested a TVR Cerberus Speed 12 on the basis that if I had one of those, the rest of my life would be short enough that I wouldn't have to bother picking any others.
Yes. That makes perfect sense. Jordan, maybe not 10, maybe 5 or 3.
What, you think he's going to have a very short life?
Not wanting to put him on the spot.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it is hard. I mean, it's one of those questions where you're like, well, you think, oh, that would be easy at first, but then you start thinking of it, and you're like, well, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think a few that come to mind for me probably. I've always loved the Audi R8. I thought that's to go back to I said I like Audis earlier, so that I suppose that makes sense. But I think that's sort of a classic car, sort of a practical car that is also very fun to drive. I don't think you would ever really get tired of that. Of course, there's classics that you kind of have to put in there, like the McLaren F1, Ferrari F40. I think those will never really get old. I think they'll age very well, but you might not want to drive them every day, of course. A few other, I think, obviously the MX-5 Miata. Pick your year there, but I think that's another car that will sort of always be around. And might have to go with maybe like a Jeep Wrangler. I think that would be. See, somebody else has posted that in their list as well, and I think that's kind of a fun little SUV that sort of it'll always have a place. It'll always have
hedging your bets that there'll be some kind of apocalypse.
Right.
At the end of
Exactly. Sometimes it snows, and you want to have a nice vehicle. Of course, I would have also liked Range Rovers, of course, Land Rovers. So might throw one of those in there as well. And gosh, I don't know. There's so many. It's hard. It's really hard to do. It's hard to pick just 10, really.
Okay, well, let's move on to our topic of the week, or topics of the week, as it is this time round. Let's start off with Jordan and your trip to the North American Nismo GT Academy Finals, where you hosted the PlayStation live stream.
Yes, I sure did. It was my third year, actually, hosting the live stream for the U.S. National Finals, and did it first in 2012. That was actually for IGN's their streaming thing, and then PlayStation took it over in 2014, and of course we did it this year for 2015. And I got to say, it's really interesting. I feel like the broadcast gets better and better every year. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to watch it, but it felt more comfortable this year, and it was a lot more fun. I had Andrew Comric Picard, who you may have seen. You may know him from, he's done a lot of different TV shows, and he's really more well known as a rally driver. He's done a lot of different rallies. Holds the Pikes Peak hill climb record for a front-wheel drive car. He was driving that Scion TC, I think it was, that had the giant front wing. It's sort of a notable, unusual car, and he set the front-wheel drive record for that. But he's just a really interesting guy. He's done a lot of stunt driving. He did some production for Top Gear, and just a really, really fun guy to talk to. We really had a great rapport, and the competition this year was very good as well. I sort of made more of an effort this year to get to know the guys before they actually showed up, so we could actually talk more about their backgrounds and who they are, where they come from, that sort of thing.
Do you want to talk a bit more about, for those who don't know, the format of the event, and perhaps a bit about how it was set up and how the event unfolded?
Sure, yeah. Well, it all started, the guys arrived, and the first part of the competition this year was the online racing portion, which was what was live broadcast. And that consisted of 4 rounds of 2 races each, and they scored points in each race. And they were initially seeded by qualifying time, which was the Nissan, their Vision GT car at Laguna Seca. And so everybody set a benchmark time, and that sort of seeded the players into these groups of 4. There was 5 groups of 4. And they all raced, and they all had the same number of points up for grabs in each race. So first race, the winners all score 4 points. Second place scores 3 points, and so on. And then after each round, they were regrouped based on how many points they had. So it kept all the point standings very close over each round, because even if you lost your first race, you were going to be grouped with presumably slower drivers for your next round, and maybe you could win if you actually had some skills. So it kept the racing close and sort of kept the groups diverse throughout the event. And so at the conclusion of the 4 rounds, they had a special bonus race this year, which was kind of cool. They brought on Nicholas Hammond and Brian Heitcotter, the previous winners, and had a race with them to win some prizes. They had a Thrustmaster steering wheel and that sort of thing. So that was the main event. That took up most of day 1. And then day 2, they also had a media challenge. They had various media outlets come in and local news stations and ask them questions and that sort of thing, just to see how the guys could talk to other people and sort of ask them some awkward questions to see how they reacted. And they also had a fitness challenge, basic fitness test, just a plank test, push-ups, and the bleep test. Sort of
Famin's favourite.
Yes, Famin's favorite. And
Yeah, I love all the fitness tests you can.
yeah, and actually the guys did pretty well on that one. I was personally pretty impressed with how they did, and I think the organizers were as well. And the last challenge was a autocross challenge. They put them in some Nismo 370Zs and had them go around a little course at the Nashville Super Speedway, which has it's an oval obviously, but it has sort of a road course on the inside as well. So they had some extra challenges, some cone slaloms and things for them to spice up the course a little bit. And so basically over the course of 2 days and all those challenges, they kind of had an idea of who they wanted to put through to represent the U.S. in the top 6. Of course, this year it's very different. In previous years we know we're going to have a U.S. winner, but this year it's not necessarily the case. They're going to send the best of the U.S. into the international region finals at race camp at Silverstone this year, so they'll be going up against the best from North Africa and Australia, who we talked about earlier, and the other regions I think were, well, we had trouble with this earlier, didn't we? But
it was Japan and
Indonesia or the Philippines. I can't remember which one we said.
yeah, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, it's sort of different this year, so you kind of feel like you're sort of pushing them out. You know, as an American, you're like pushing, here's our best, and good luck to them. So I really loved getting to know the guys, and I think that they made great selections. I had a chance to talk to all of the 6 who were eventually selected, and I think they would be good GT Academy champions. I didn't really get to see them drive in the cars, but I know they all did well in the fitness tests, and they were all very easy to talk to, well spoken, and they did great in the challenges, the virtual racing challenges as well. So I feel pretty good about our representatives this year, I got to say, and it was a lot of fun.
You've got a couple of guys. I've been to a fair few national finals and race camps as well. You've got a couple of guys there who really do look the part. I think Armin Aga Khan and Ryan Lynch. They're really just in their post photograph. They're kind of bringing over that confidence that a GT Academy would have really needs.
Yes, they do, and that confidence translates into their one-on-one interactions as well. You know, we had dinner the first night after the online racing portion, and I sat with let's see, Armin was not at my table, but Ryan Lynch was, as well as Tyler Utley, who's the famous dentist who's made it through
Yes.
race camp, and you know, both of them were just very well spoken and very easy, fun to talk to, and they would be, you know, if I was running a race team, I would be happy to work with those guys. They seem, very smart and very just, competitive and well spoken and good representatives all around. So well done this year to those guys.
I think the most underestimated part of the process is the media test and the performance there, because you are ultimately going to be representing one of the largest car manufacturers in the world and their brand. So do you think people are taking that bit of the process more seriously because of the requirements put on these guys?
Well, they should. They absolutely should. But and I think they did. Nissan, for their part, did a much better job of organizing media, and getting them to come. They did a much better job than in previous years, from what I could see. And having them ask really tough questions is more in line of what they would actually see at actual race camp. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think a lot of the guys maybe realize that they're really always watching them, and really everybody's talking behind the scenes. The people from Sony, from PlayStation, from Nissan, to me, and everybody is sort of talking about them all the time. And so the way you carry yourself, the way you come across, that matters, and beyond the media challenge. I think the media challenge is it's extremely important. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's almost sort of a formality, because you do get to have so much interaction with the guys, through organizing them at breakfast and putting them on the bus and just talking to them. I know that the Nissan people have a lot more interactions, and sort of the things that they were saying, I could kind of see what they were saying in terms of some of the guys. And you don't want to be arrogant, you don't want to be boisterous, you don't want to be a jerk, basically. And I think that hurt some of the guys' chances, and they may not have realized that they were being tested, but you're really always being watched. And so for anybody who's listening who may want to move forward in the competition in the future, definitely be nice and be somebody that you would definitely want to be around, and be somebody that you would want to work with. So you're always being watched, you're always being tested, and it's definitely a competition. You can't really rest on your laurels too much.
I mean, this isn't just GT Academy, it's for all young racing drivers, whatever the category, Andrew. I mean, I don't think we're going to see another Kimi Räikkönen again, are we?
It's certainly possible. They say if you want to win, hire a Finn, and I don't think a Finnish guy has won GT Academy yet. But yeah, it's certainly the case that all of the Academy winners have been relatively effusive and outgoing. I think Jan was fairly quietly spoken, but he's now much more comfortable within himself, and he's a very larger than life character.
He's now referred to by the boss, Darren Cox, as Mr. Hollywood.
That's not all that surprising. He's a very, very personable chap. But yeah, you have to be, as Jordan says, don't be a jerk. I mean, there have been a few guys at race camp who the judges have taken a dislike to, even though they're at race camp, because either they're slightly too arrogant, maybe, or just a little bit better in their head than they are on the track. There were some British guys who made a bit of a Horlicks, as we say, of their race camp, entirely on the PR front, where after the first day they were a bit tired and hungry, and they headed out to the local McDonald's near to Silverstone, but they were still all wearing all of their GT Academy branded gear, and they didn't realise that they were basically out there showing the name of Nissan and Sony, having a McDonald's. So yeah, you are being watched all of the time by everyone.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and you have to be likable. I don't think that can be stated enough. If you have to be agreeable, you have to be likable, competitive, but likable. That's the main thing. And for some people, that's hard to sort of reprogram in their personality. That's just part of it. But it is something.
I hope that wasn't directed at me then.
But
I am very old and set in my ways now.
No, it wasn't directed at anybody in particular, but it's true. It's something that I think a lot of guys may think, oh, I've got the speed, I'm good to go. I'm gonna nail the physical fitness. I'm gonna be fast in the car, etc. But that's definitely not all of it.
Well, look at the categories that Nissan compete in. The main ones are LMP1, LMP2, and GT3, and they are all I mean, all motorsport is a team sport, but in particular, in between the drivers, they are team sports. So you've got to be aware of where, if you win the title of Nismo GT Academy champion, where you might be placed and what type of racing you would be doing.
Right, absolutely, and that's you're going to have to work with people from all over the world, and you're going to have to race in stressful situations. Things aren't going to go well. If you're at Le Mans and you're in the 24-hour race, testing the new GTR LM, and things aren't going too well, which might happen sometimes, then you've got to be upbeat. You've got to be positive. You don't want to be in a weird mood bringing the team down. You want to say, let's keep fighting, guys. Let's just keep going. And that's, if you're in a weird mood in race camp, you're going to be in a weirder mood come race day.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying about it being a team sport, something that we see time and again at race camp is the assault course, the big physical test. A lot of the guys who are successful and are still in the competition much, much later on aren't the guys who ace the assault course. They're the guys who complete the assault course and then help their teammates to finish it as well.
Right.
And we've seen this over and over again. And it's not necessarily the case that if you're not very good at the fitness test and you're struggling through the assault course that you're not going to get through. But we have seen guys who are extremely good at the assault course, they have gone back and they have helped their mates, their countrymen, to get through the assault course themselves as well. Mm-hmm. And we see it again and again and again. But the guys who get through are the guys who are so personal, so personable, so friendly, so outgoing that they will do what they can to help their friends out.
Yes, well said.
I think that's a good note to end that topic on. So we'll see how those 6 progress. So looking back a bit further now to last month, Famine, you were at the Goodwood Festival of Speed this year, and you talked to someone rather interesting.
Yes, we got an invite about a week and a bit before the event to go down to Goodwood and speak to Kazunori Yamauchi, which turned out to be a one-on-one interview in a nice quiet room, which was fortunate because I was getting sunburned quite badly. So we were invited down to talk about the Vision GT project. Kazunori was there in this instance to talk about the Infinity Vision GT and the design direction of Infinity. He also turned up later on at the Peugeot stand to talk about the Peugeot Vision GT as well. So he was definitely there in his capacity as gaming / manufacturer liaison. But yeah, we had a good 20-minute chat with Kazunori, one-on-one with translator San, of course, as well. All about Vision GT, past, present, and future. Although obviously I can't give away too much about the future part of it. So it was quite interesting to hear him talk about the cars, especially the Mazda LM55 Vision Gran Turismo, which was part of the central sculpture at the Goodwood Festival of Speed this year. It was put up on a lovely kind of herringbone steel sculpture alongside the 787B, which Mazda won Le Mans with in 1991. So big boots to fill. But
I mean, would you say that's perhaps the most, in inverted commas, realistic Vision GT car, and perhaps is a statement from Mazda?
Yes. There have been a lot of rumblings about Mazda returning to Le Mans. Maybe not next year, but certainly the year after. And the LM55,
which makes sense with the change in regulations for P1 for that year.
Yes, next year it's kind of as you were, but there was a big change the following year, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think they're also increasing the grid sizes as well.
Because they're building some new garages, so they can fit the cars in.
So that'll be good. But yeah, it does kind of look forward to something. But Kazunori's reaction to seeing it It's just, he said he basically he walked underneath it and saw it up there in the sky and thought to himself, nice. which he actually said in English, which is it's always fun when Kazunori speaks English. His English is very, very good, but he very rarely uses it.
And so, Vision Gran Turismo is obviously all about concept cars and about future ideas and letting design studios get really creative. What impact do you think that this project has had on not only the idea of building concept cars, but how that goes into the production cars and bringing those cars to the virtual world?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, some of the manufacturers, especially early on, they've kind of turned the project over to students, to design engineering students, perhaps possibly as some kind of test. But
it's a recruitment process.
Yeah, but some of them are taking it very, very seriously indeed, to the point where now some manufacturers are wanting to get a second or even third Vision GT car into the game. Not necessarily into GT6, which probably doesn't have too many years left in it, but certainly into Gran Turismo. But yeah, I mean, several of the cars are not necessarily completely production ready, but pretty close to iterations of cars that we're going to see in the next few years. I think Toyota were pretty much first to that with the FT1, which is so close to what a production car could be. What I mean, people called it the next Supra when they first saw it. The Mercedes Vision GT, a company in, I think it was in the US, is actually building those out of SLRs. Or it might be SLSs, but I think it's SLRs. The first Volkswagen Vision GT basically was a hybrid 600 horsepower Golf, convertible, admittedly, but again, not massively removed from a road car. The Mazda, we might see the Mazda on circuit with very little change in the next couple of years. The Infiniti, that's pretty close to the design ethos of Infiniti at the moment. You can see a lot of their next car, the Q30. You can see a lot of the concept in that. So yeah, I mean, Vision GT is a kind of you like it or you don't thing. A lot of people aren't necessarily fans of it because we're getting hypothetical concept cars instead of actual new cars to the game. But we're looking at cars that you might be seeing in 3 or 4 years' time.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people who don't like or claim they don't like the program, I think they just feel a sense of contempt for it because I think they believe that these cars are somehow taking the place of or pushing out production cars that might be able to make it into Gran Turismo 6. I think that's sort of where some of those bad feelings come from, and I don't think
when it's perhaps quite the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, we may not be getting anything if it wasn't for the Vision GT program. I think,
and also it's building relationships with those manufacturers.
Absolutely. You know, they. I think that a lot of these Vision GT cars are sort of a. I think it's sort of. I don't want to say excuse. I don't want to use the word excuse, but I believe it's sort of a. It's a good way to it's a good way for the companies to kind of share their internal concepts in a way that can be used more than just for a reveal at an auto show. You know, more than just a picture. They can actually use that concept car to really promote the brand by putting it in Gran Turismo. And so anything that makes them feel that Gran Turismo is more important is a very good thing for us, the players, because that's important, and ultimately we're all beholden to the manufacturers to get their cars in these games. Us as the fans and Kazunori and even the other game manufacturers, we want them to really feel like these racing games are the future. And so I think it's really important for everybody to support the project, and I don't believe that it is somehow taking away from the other games the other cars that we could be having in the game. Personally, I think the only thing that's, in terms of Gran Turismo 6, what's keeping some modern production cars from coming into the game is Gran Turismo 7. I think Polyphony is wisely holding on to a lot of the new cars so that we'll have more new things to explore in the next game. But I think it's a wonderful project, and I think we may not really see the true fruits of this labor until the years to come.
I think one of the complaints that I've seen the most is, and I share, is the lack of interior cockpits. Famin, what did Kazunori have to say about that?
Yeah, it was one of the questions that I did actually put to him, and he said that effectively it came down to timing. A lot of these cars, because the reveals in the real world are physically set, usually motor shows, sometimes festivals like the Wörthersee Volkswagen Festival, and the timing is very specifically set, and so they have to get at least the exterior model of the car ready for that time. And they were finding that some manufacturers were not necessarily particularly diligent with providing them with interiors, particularly because these are all fictional, I suppose, cars to an extent. So they don't have an interior unless the manufacturer designs one, and then it won't be.
Often that's two separate teams in a company doing the exterior and the interior. And one thing you see quite often at car shows is concept interiors, which aren't either in an existing car, or they're not really in a car at all, and they're just showing this concept dash or something. So they're almost two separate concepts.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, some concept cars will show up with opaque windows, just because they don't actually physically have an interior. But with the Vision GT cars, there may not be a full-size real version of it, so the interior might not be the same. You can't scan the interior to the same quality as you can the exterior modelling. But he did say it was something that they hoped to have interiors for all of them.
Yeah, I think I think people also underestimate just how difficult it is to create the interiors in the game, and when they may say, oh, look, this company published a sketch for the interior, or, we see some type of crude model, that shows an interior for a Vision GT car. Well, that the company may not want that to be represented in the game, because maybe it's not in a final state. And if they produce the car or send the external specifications and mechanical specifications to Polyphony in time to release the car in the game, and then they don't prepare the internal design, I guess, for lack of a better term, then how's Polyphony supposed to model that? And then you have to consider the logistics too. Once they do complete the interior, well, they're going to have to send another team back out to scan and photograph and collect all the data that they need to recreate that. So it's a lot of work, and I think for these cars, which have sort of been developed very quickly, kind of makes it much more challenging. I think we sort of take the interiors for granted a bit these days.
So, looking back at last week's racing, we had the 13th round of the 2015 GTPlanet Endurance Series, which was the 4 hours of Scuba. I'm informed the correct pronunciation is by Famin. Is that right, Scuba?
Close enough, yeah.
Close enough. So this was with the GT300 class and the TCN1 class. First time these two classes had raced together. Due to the constricted nature of the circuit, we reduced the car count. Lightning Speed Motorsport took pole in their Mazda